A proud country with a lasting tradition of preserving the family name, this policy made the birth of a child a revered event, unless you were a girl. Limited to one child, parents began favoring males over females. This twofold demographic disaster resulted in the sex-selective abortions of baby girls and produced a population with approximately 37 million more men than women. More of a radical social experiment than civil practical law, this legislation is responsible for causing tragic consequences even 40 years later. Although it was successful in completing seemingly important tasks, it was unsuccessful in its methods and morals. China, an immense country with an intense history. A series of dynasties maintained by emperors engaging hundreds of concubines to preserve the line. As China grew and trade flourished, more children were produced to keep up with labor demands, but the population plummeted when plague struck. In response, the government hastily trained a fleet of medical personnel, known as the Barefoot Doctors. Part peasant, part pastor, they were to promote and implement state hygiene principles and policies. On October 1st, 1949, the Chinese Communist leader Mao Zedong declared the formation of the People's Republic of China, or PRC, ending the costly Chinese Civil War between the Chinese Communist Party and the Nationalist Party, the Kuomintang. A grand ceremony inaugurating the People's Republic of China was held in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, witnessed by 300,000 people. On that day, Chairman Mao Zedong solemnly proclaimed the formal establishment of the People's Republic of China, followed soon after by a program called the Great Leap Forward in 1958. The Great Leap Forward was Mao's attempt to develop agriculture and industry. In less than 30 years, the population grew from 540 million to 940 million. The one-child policy was targeted towards China's ethnic Hans, who comprised more than 90% of the population. The policy began with an open letter issued by the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. 38 million Communist Party members were told to use patient and painstaking persuasion to teach family planning. There were two immediate issues with the policy. First, it was not needed. China was experiencing declining fertility rates on its own.
But the sad fact was, China was already reducing its population. They already had a family population planning policy in place that was actually much less coercive. It was called the Later, Longer, and Fewer program.
National pride drives China to always be on top, and according to Forbes magazine, China will be the best in technology advancements, economic development, and manufacturing by 2035. In the late 1970s, Chinese families were already choosing to limit their family to 1.2 children on average, so they could provide the best for them.
And during that period of time, the average family size had gone from about 6 kids to 3. So that was pretty successful, and a lot of experts argued that they should have just kept going at that rate. And if they had done that, then they would still have reduced the population without any of these side effects that the one-child policy engendered.
Secondly, the policy was developed by the Chinese military. Those specializing in demography trends and social behaviors were not consulted in how this policy should be implemented and what the implications might be. It was designed by the military strategists to accomplish a specific goal, to alter the trajectory of China's growing population. The scientists and military strategists involved did not regard the social consequences this policy would create for the Chinese people.
The one-child policy was enforced by the National Population and Family Committee. Family planning officials were charged with regularly checking menstrual cycle and pelvic exam results of every woman of childbearing age in a given area. Couples that violated the policy faced fines and potential loss of employment. Some were forced to abort or undergo forced sterilization. Propaganda was a very powerful force. In the cities, families were told to have less children and plant more trees.
The one-child policy has resulted in the formation of a unique generation. For the last 35 years, more men than women have been born in China. Chinese tradition has always taught that males were dominant, hence the concept of yin and yang. Women are expected to be passive, yielding, and receptive, and men to be hard, active, assertive, and dominating. A proverb in the Book of Documents, an ancient Chinese text, says, "When the hen announces the dawn, it signals the demise of the family." Limited to one child, parents began favoring males over females, resulting in infanticide and abandonment of female babies. Families were forced to leave their daughters in populated areas, hoping they would be cared for.
This unique generation is comprised of over 30 million more males than females, leading to tension regarding marriage. Referred to as branchless trees, these bachelors are unable to reproduce and are seeking brides from other countries, diluting Chinese culture. This gender preference is resulting in almost all male classrooms, made up of spoiled single children. Known as the Little Emperor Syndrome, these males are poorly disciplined and have few social and adaptive skills.
The one-child policy has also created the 4-2-1 problem. The children of the one-child policy are now grown and finding themselves physically and financially responsible for 6 adults.
All of these single children who were born during the 1980s and 1990s now have a set of parents and 2 sets of grandparents to take care of, so up to 6 people who will be aging out of the workforce and that a single child will have to take care of. And so there's this massive burden on the society and on these children to earn enough money to be able to take care of that many people.
As this aging army increases, the elderly population will result in a financial strain for the country for the next 2 to 3 decades.
The policy was relaxed in 2016, allowing for families to have 2 children, but will produce few changes. Chinese authorities still control the birth rate. Families are still being limited, and women are still being told when they can and cannot have a child. The one-child policy is internationally recognized as a tragedy. China will be living with this tragic legacy of gender imbalance for years to come. The policy upended traditional structures for supporting older adults and led to a widening imbalance in the number of men and women, an imbalance that will create social unrest. A triumph of this injustice lies in the increase of international adoptions. After the implementation of the one-child policy, 78,000 children, mostly female, were adopted from China. Katie Poehler, now 20 years old, was abandoned by her heartbroken parents when they decided to have her.
家境贫寒和世事所迫，万般无奈，乞小立于街头。人若有情，可怜天下父母亲。于10年、20年后，相会杭州断桥之上。
When her father left her, he sent a letter asking her to consider someday meeting them, in 10 years or maybe 20, on the broken bridge. Every year on July 7th, Chinese families use the bridge to reconnect with lost family members. Katie met her family and soon realized they were desperate for forgiveness.
I understand for him why he needed forgiveness, but for me, I didn't feel like I needed to forgive them for anything. Like, from my perspective, I understand their situation as much as I think I can. And like, yeah, they were stuck. They were stuck in a system that was so broken.
The one-child policy in China created a massive imbalance of males to females. As a result, women in China have a new place of value. The recent progress of women in China is significant, and the government is paying more attention to core issues, such as access to jobs and higher education, stricter laws regarding domestic violence, and more equitable divorces. They are choosing more education and opportunity for themselves and changing the future of their country. For the first time in the country's long history, the demographic reality of modern China is empowering women. The changes occurring in China are historic. Traditional roles are being challenged, and perhaps in the coming years, women will hold the power to determine their future and their family.